Here this afternoon, to give a little bit of information about two cases we've had over the past month or so. One of them is a case that we worked over on Coachman Lakes Drive in the Sandalwood area of Jacksonville. Another one is on Klein Road, which is on the south side of Jacksonville. And both of these cases involve open house parties, and both of these cases involve adults and parents that led to the delinquency of minors. I'll cover the Klein Road case first because that happened first. That happened on the Saturday night into Sunday morning on March 30th of this year, again around midnight. JSO was dispatched to a loud music complaint. Several neighbors had called in about the large house party that was there. While the officers were en route, the call was upgraded to shots being heard, and then the call was upgraded still while they were en route to somebody being shot. This was an open house party attended by at least 100, maybe more people, at a 1,500 square foot house. That party was so large that it had spilled over outside into the yard and into the street. When the party was outside, gunshots occurred, and a neighbor who was across the street who had come out to investigate the gunshots was shot and killed. Ms. Cheyenne Trey Lewis was the renter of the house and was throwing that house party for her 16-year-old goddaughter. Cheyenne Trey Lewis was present and aware of the drinking and all the other activities that occurred at this house. That murder investigation is still ongoing into that case. A similar case that happened on April 19th of this year, again, a little bit after midnight. This time we were dispatched to shots fired. There was a fight that had occurred inside a house in the Sandalwood area, and the ruckus that surrounded that fight inside the house caused the party to spill outside into the front yard into the street. That party also was attended by over 100 people, and this time was in around this 2,000 square foot house. An unknown attendee at that party pulled a gun, and two males were shot. One male died at the scene, another male was transported to the hospital, and he has survived so far of his injuries. Holly Bowers was the then renter of that house, and she threw the party for her 14-year-old daughter, her 17-year-old niece, and a 19-year-old friend of her niece's. Ms. Bowers admitted to purchasing 2 bottles of Sky vodka for her 14-year-old daughter for this party, aware of what was going to happen with this, and aware of the fact that her daughter is 14 and she's buying alcohol for a party for her. Ms. Bowers again admitted to making those purchases for us. I wanted to discuss both of these cases because you would think that these cases are the extreme of what can happen at these house parties, and they are. These are extreme cases that happen within 3 weeks of each other. 2 separate families who didn't know each other, and this is what these open house parties led to. And these aren't just open house parties, these are open house parties that the renter of the house, in one case the parent, in another case the godparent, actually allowed this to go on, bought alcohol for it to go on, and really abdicated their parental and adult responsibilities to these kids. The sheriff's office wants it to be known that we will not tolerate, and the sheriff asked me to reiterate to the public that we will not tolerate parents and adults abdicating their parental responsibilities when it comes to their kids. Both of the women in these cases have been charged with contributing to the delinquency of a minor. Again, these are the extreme of what can happen, but the depravity that can go on under your own roof with your own children there, it's inexcusable, and it will not be tolerated. Both of these parties, I alluded to the fact that both of these parties had 100 people each at them. Both of these murder investigations are still open, still ongoing. We don't have the sufficient number of tips that we need to solve these cases as we stand now. So we come to the public not only passing on this information about these 2 delinquent parents, but also asking the public for some help. Again, these kids were there, they saw what happened. This is the social media age. We hope, halfway thought that maybe some of these murders would have been captured on camera. They may indeed have been. So we're asking anybody who has heard about this, who may be an attendee at one of these parties, to give us a call. As always, you can remain anonymous. Crime Stoppers, you're eligible for a $1,000 reward. 1-866-845-8477. Tips. give us a call. You can call the Sheriff's Office direct at 630-0500. We appreciate your coming out and passing that word on for us. I can't take a few questions.
Director Scott Johnson, Channel 4. You're looking for these people. Had everyone dispersed by the time police got there? Did you have any witnesses when you arrived on the scene?
There were still some people present. Not quite as many as we hoped there would remain around. You know, when these things erupt into gunfire, the first thing people do is flee and don't remain around for us. So again, that's kind of why we're coming out. This press release today, we're coming out with it today. You thought it relevant that these two, the mother and the godmother, be held responsible for their part in these, because if they had not allowed this to happen, both of these cases involving this murder wouldn't have occurred. So we think it's relative for that.
Stephanie Brown, WOKV. Do you know of the 150 and 100 or so sized crowds, about how many of those were underaged, and additionally about how many were initially invited versus, you know, party got out of control?
I'm not really sure exactly of the numbers of who were underage and weren't. More of the people that we spoke to were underage. And some of these parties are done, again, by social media, where you invite one, and that person that you invite has 4 friends, and so on and so on. So, you know, these may get out of hand faster than you anticipate them getting out of hand, where your child or your godchild, in one of these cases, may be trying to get 20 people over to their house for a party. When these things go out in social media, that you can have 200 people at your house before you know it. And these are 2 examples of the bad things that can happen.
With Action News. Director Hackney, it sounds like the godparent and the mother were both pretty open with police about what they allowed to happen. Did at any point they mentioned that they tried to stop the party from getting out of control? Did they feel uneasy at any point when there was 100+ people showing up in their house?
One of the particular cases had an adult child patting people down at the door to try to control who was coming in and who wasn't coming in. Again, so that wasn't. There were no calls made to the sheriff's office by either member of either woman here or the people responsible for these parties to ask for help. That too many people were there. Certainly we would have responded if that was the case, but no calls like that were made.
Which party was doing the pat downs?
I'd have to get back with you on that, but it was one of the 2.
Scott Johnson, Channel 4. Do we know if either of these houses were known for house parties prior to these incidents?
Honestly, Scott, I'm not sure if they were or if they weren't. I know one of the 2 parties, the Coachman Lakes Drive, I believe it's Coachman Lakes Drive. One of them has been subsequently evicted from the house, and I have to get which one that was. So honestly, I'm not sure.
Were these the only adults living in the home?
I believe so. Yes.
Stephanie Brown, WOKV. With at least the Klein Road, we had heard that initially there may have been some kind of a fight between the neighbor and party attendees. Has that been kind of come to light or clarified at all?
Still working through some of those facts. Again, both of these murder cases are still very active, still open, still being worked. And I'm not here to say that they're done by any stretch of the imagination. Some of that was looked into, that's still being looked into as to what that neighbor's involvement could have been prior to what was going on. But he certainly was not a party attendee, had nothing to do with the party other than coming out of his house to at least investigate what was going on.
Were there other adults in either of these homes at the time other than these 2?
We don't have the information as to that they were. I know there was another adult child of one of these, but I don't know when they became involved in that.
I see one of them has prohibition against nude and semi-nude acts. I'm sorry, that's a previous. I apologize.
Yeah, the Holly Bowers has an extensive criminal history involving burglary, petty theft, DUI, 2 DUIs actually, driving while license suspended, obtaining controlled substances by fraud, and then some adult entertainment violations. And Shayon Trey Lewis has an aggravated battery arrest as a criminal history.
And I'm sorry to clarify, the Klein, we had one, at the Coachman Lakes, we had 1 dead, 1 survived the shooting. What was the shooting at Klein?
Klein Road was the one that was killed. Just okay. One single person killed, and the Coachman Lakes, that's where 2 people were shot. 1 person died at the scene, another transported to the hospital, and is subsequently.
So in total, between the 2, there were 3 people shot.
Correct.
2 of which are dead. Okay.
And with Coachman Lakes, when this first happened, the suspect, if I'm not mistaken, was characterized as a party crasher, unknown, you mentioned. Is that still believed to be the case, unknown to the people who were at the party?
Not sure. Again, that's kind of why we've come out looking for some information on that. You get these little bits of information as you look into these cases, because you've got so many people there trying to determine who may have seen, who may have heard. You get ear witnesses and eyewitnesses and try to limit those down to who did or didn't see something. But we're sure there are more people who saw something than we talked to.
Chris, Longtime Union, just to clarify, these two cases are unrelated?
Completely unrelated.
Okay.
But just unrelated, but to the fact that they were both house parties that both had very poor outcomes with them, and both had adults or parents taking part in letting it happen or obtaining the means by which to have the party.
And they were both arrested today?
Yes.
Is there any reason why you guys chose to arrest both of them today at the same time?
Both of the investigations had led to a point that at least with the Coachman Drive, we reached a point with talking to Bowers where she made a confession to her involvement with it. The other case, worked by another team, had reached pretty much that same level. Decision was made to look both today.
Okay.
This is John Casada, First Coast News. Are these two women, may they even face possible charges for being responsible for the deaths of these people since it was within their home, their property, their parties?
At this time, we've only charged them with contributing to a delinquency of a minor. Discussions will be had with the state attorney as to where those charges may go in the future. But as it stands now, we're holding them responsible for the level of their involvement.
And the shots fired at both parties that happened outside of the home?
Correct. Both of them happened outside.
What kind of penalties come with those kind of charges if convicted of them?
Both of these are misdemeanors, so less than a year or two.
Were these two women cooperating with the homicide investigation?
To a point.
Okay.
We didn't get the level of upfront truthfulness from the beginning that we needed.
Okay. What about the surviving victim? Is he cooperating with you guys?
Yes, he has been cooperative, but again, limited information has come from that. So.
Any other questions?
Thank you all for your time and cooperation.